Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 33 Voices Dialogues. It is a real pleasure for me to welcome a new friend to our program and someone who not only inspires me, but ever since I've started to follow him, has always stretched my thinking zone. Kapil Gupta is a personal advisor to some of the world's most successful CEOs, professional athletes, and entertainers. And as you're about to find out, his advice is not conventional, to say the least. So, Kapil, great to be with you.
Thank you, Will. Pleasure to be here.
You are certainly one who is as ironclad about his view of the world and life in general as anyone that I have met. So, for those hearing us have this conversation for the first time, what is the most important thing that people need to know about you?
The most direct answer I can give is that my God is the truth.
Elaborate on that for me.
In every problem, in every situation, in every circumstance, in every deep life issue, there is always a truth. There are ways that you can go left or right. There are things that you can advise for and advise against. There are advantages and disadvantages, but there's always a truth. And the truth is never logistic, and the truth is never mechanical. And it isn't one decision that's more right than another decision. It is about where that decision comes from. It is the source of the decision which categorizes it as truth or not. So that is my holy grail. That is my mode of attack in all things.
So, when you're sitting down and talking with someone and obviously the people you work with have had great achievements in life, what you've just said sounds so logical, yet seems so elusive to most of us. None of us want to think that we're not living our truth, but the truth of the matter, no pun intended, is that we're not. What are we missing?
The desire to know the truth. It isn't about a methodology. It isn't about a way. It is just that human beings generally are not interested in the truth. It doesn't motivate them. It doesn't inspire them. There is a small subset who insist upon it, and those are the ones who find it, and those are the ones who resonate with it. But the rest of them simply ask for prescriptions, which I am profoundly and categorically against.
So for the majority then, what are we running away from? What are we afraid of?
I think avoidance is a very comfortable way to live. I think asking someone for the answer is a very safe way to live, which ends up being very dangerous in the end. You know, I don't think that it really is about being afraid. I think it just comes down to DNA. And I don't mean biological DNA. I mean sensibility DNA, one's natural bent towards things. There are just those people who, for whatever inexplicable reason, are just gravitate towards wanting to know. They love to learn. They crave the knowing of the central nucleus of the matter. And I don't think that really I don't think that any conversation that stems around the masses and trying to get the masses to move is a fruitful conversation. I think it is much more about lateral moves and not vertical ones. It is difficult and almost futile to take someone or attempt to take someone who has virtually no interest in the truth at all, or only a curious sort of a passing curiosity in the truth, and try to get that person to look for the truth. That would be a vertical attempt. A lateral attempt is someone who is already world class in what they do, and by virtue of them being world class, they already, almost by definition, have to be outside the box thinkers. They tend to buck the norm. They tend to move against society. They do things their own way. And that's exactly the DNA of the person who seeks the truth. It is just that now they would be doing it in a different arena, but bringing all those resources with them. So I'm much more interested in lateral moves than I am vertical ones. So when you ask a question which says, what is everyone afraid of? The implication, the source of your question centers around the idea that we should say something in order to help the masses find what they are, what it is they're running away from. And if they discover that, then we can help them on the way to the truth. I have no interest in that. Life is very short. I am only interested in the people who are serious enough to begin with and therefore need a small catalyst to make a lateral move as opposed to a massive earthquake to make a vertical one.
So let's talk to the latter. Let's assume for a moment we're only talking to the latter. And you said something to me last week that I want to dig a little bit deeper in. You said something to the effect that if I tell somebody the how to get wherever they want to go, they'll be stuck forever. What do you mean by that?
Yes. All of society, whether it is in the whether it is in technical instruction or spiritual matters or coaching or teaching or in business or in sports, whatever it may be, everyone functions off of an unstated premise. And the reason it's unstated is that it's so accepted, it's such a given, that it doesn't even need to be stated. And that is that in order for you to do X, I will teach you how to do X. Now, for some very, very basic technical things, yes, you can get away with that. But those things don't have really much artistic significance. But there's a massive problem with that. The problem is that if you teach someone how to do something, they will forever be asking you if the how that they employed is the correct how. They will always come back and ask you, was that right? Was this correct? And I didn't get it. That my how was wrong? And then you will say, well, yeah, you didn't do it quite this way. No, you were a little bit off here. As a result, it's like leading a blind man towards a tree. And he's forever dependent upon you to tell him to walk to the left or the right, and it's getting colder or warmer until he gets there. That is treating a human being like an invalid. That is so disrespectful to the artistry and the ingenuity that a human being is born with, that it basically sabotages all of his efforts, because teaching someone the how does not create art. It creates dependency.
When your best relationships come to you, your best clients, I know they're more than clients to you, but when your best relationships comes to you, what type of questions are they asking you? If they're not asking you how, what type of questions are they asking you?
They do ask how, but they very quickly learn not to.
As I did, right? I learned really quickly.
Yes, because the paradigm is so completely contrary. It is so antithetical to society that it's literally a part of the water. So, Why do you ask me what kind of questions do they ask me? Why are you asking?
Because I'm curious for two reasons. Number one, I know that anyone that you choose to work with is on a path to greatness. So there is a gap that they sense that's missing in their life, number one. And number two, I know that the quality of a person is in direct proportion to the quality of the questions he or she asks. So for those two reasons, I want to get a sense of one, what are the commonalities of some of these people that you're working with, and what are they working towards?
I think it'll be instructive to give the flavor. It isn't so much the exact questions that they ask. It is this. Here's the commonality. It is the genuine desire to know. The need to learn is something that is part and parcel with their DNA. That is one of the greatest commonalities.
Infinite learners.
Yes.
So I come
but not infinite, but not infinite disciples. And let me make a distinction. The person who is an infinite disciple is the one who doesn't really want to become a master. He loves the role of disciplehood, and he doesn't necessarily love the role of disciplehood because it allows him an unending opportunity to learn. It is much more about that's who I was meant to be. That's where I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable as this disciple where I shall remain forever. As opposed to the one who truly wants to know, he actually wants to become a master. He doesn't want to become a professional disciple.
You have developed a very unique ability to see something in people whom you work with that they don't see in themselves, which in and of itself leads to that mastery. What is that something that you see or that you look for that most of us, don't see?
Sincerity. That is the single most important element that I look for in anyone. Are they sincere? And by sincere, I don't mean if someone's a truth teller or if he tells fibs. What I mean is, by sincere, do you really genuinely want that? Or are you playing a curiosity game? I desire to work with individuals who are truly sincere, who are not looking for a tip, who aren't looking for a quote hack, to use modern vernacular. It is a genuine desire to say yes. I actually genuinely want that, whatever that is.
Is that pretty easy for you to notice?
You can sense sincerity pretty quickly, yes.
And the people
I can sense sincerity even in emails.
Oh yeah, but you've developed a really great skill for that. And
I suppose you are hyper attuned precisely to those things that you look for in a laser-like fashion, right?
Sure. Are the people that you see that sincerity in, are they surprised that they haven't noticed it themselves?
They're typically surprised that they haven't been sincere enough. Typically how it goes is that they catch themselves going down the curiosity sort of game. And while there is the DNA for sincerity within them, they live in a society which preaches prescription for so long that they sort of, have drunk that water. And so they reflexively go down that path and begin to ask questions like, well, how should I do that? And what is the methodology of that? And then we always, and I tell them in the first session, we're going to circle back to sincerity about 5,000 times over the next however many years. And we always do. And the person always ends up saying something like, so we're right back to sincerity again, aren't we? Yes, we are. We're always going to return to sincerity, not as a prescription, but because the only reason that you don't have what you want is because you didn't really want it. The only reason that you have the things that you do is because you couldn't live without them. And the only reason that you are where you are is because somewhere within you, it is okay for you to be there.
And the quest for mastery is never ending, right? We're always in pursuit of that mastery. When do you get a sense?
Yeah, I think the never-ending thing is more of a romanticized idea. So I think that the person who really wants to be a master doesn't subscribe to the notion that it's never-ending. I think the one who doesn't really want it is the one who says it's never really ending, because he doesn't really want that way to begin with. So the person who really wants it, he absolutely wants an end point. So I'll get messages on social media all the time about it's about the destination or the journey, not the destination. It's always bumper sticker sayings, and like there's no genuineness behind it. It's what do you really want? It is sitting with yourself in a dark corner and saying, what do I really, really want? And the answer that comes in the first 7 seconds is never the right one. It's a cultivation. It's an exploration in order to discover that. And without discovering it, you chase ghosts.
Is there a commonality to what people want that you work with? Is it success in however way they define it?
I don't really think anybody wants success. I think everyone wants something. Whatever everyone wants is euphemistic. The professional athlete will come looking for performance. Performance is what he really wants. The CEO will come looking for peace. Peace isn't really what he really wants. The want is never stated outright. The thing that is verbalized is the masquerader of the want. The want has to be discovered. Never walks in the door.
And for those who are not going to have the privilege to work with you personally, how do they start on that discovery? If they are deadly serious about seeking that truth that you're talking about, don't give them a prescription. Give them paint a picture for me of what it takes for us to get on that path.
If you are really serious about finding the truth, you will not find it difficult to throw every book you have about self-help in the trash. You will not find it difficult to turn off the radio and to stop listening to gurus and to stop reading scriptures. You will not hesitate one bit, because those things do not speak the truth. Those things speak prescription and bondage and adherence to a group. And anything at all that involves a group is false. All things arise in the individual, from the individual, by way of the individual. Group think is nonsense. Group meditation is a farce. All the things out there from meditation retreats to silent retreats, it's all a sham. These are all scams. These are all fake gurus who line the banks at Rishikesh. These are all people who raise their head and put a ponytail around it and put paint on their face to masquerade as being a guru, and they're all charlatans. If you really seek the truth, stop following anybody. Stop asking for prescriptions. The moment that you have a how, you have bondage, you have dependency, you will get nowhere. That is something that must be okay with you if you truly seek the truth.
It's okay with me. So take me on that journey. And speaking of that, what do you notice as the biggest difference between the people that you work with who get closer to that truth? Do you see something in them? Is there a before and after? They come to you today and they say, hey, I am deadly serious. I know you're no bullshit. I want to go on that path. When do you start to see a change in them?
I will tell you the honest truth. When I work with someone, I never try to produce a change. And when a change happens, and it gets back to me that some big changes happen in their life, no one is more surprised than me. Because I didn't try to make any change. All we did was look at the issues before us, dissect them, take them apart, look at what's there, and prescribe nothing. Fix nothing. You do not need to fix anything. You need to see everything. And in the seeing, in the quiet examination, the truth reveals itself. So when I hear that someone has become calm and their wife tells them that they're totally different now, or their friends tell them, how are you like this all of a sudden? And believe me, I'm very surprised because I had no strategy to create that. All things for me have happened organically. All things with every client I have ever had happened organically. They happened the way things always happen. Never by a goal, always as a side effect.
Is there one relationship that you worked with that had just astonished you at the person that individual has become as a result of your interaction?
Yeah, several.
Give me one, obviously without naming any names.
I've stopped drinking. I've stopped using substances, those kind of things, and we never really discussed that ever. I've stopped speeding on the highway. Never in my life have I discussed speeding on the highway. When I eat slowly. It seems that when I talk to someone, I'm completely and totally there now. When I give a speech, I have no idea what I'm going to say. Now, all these things just materialize like magic.
You know, we talked about some common patterns amongst these individuals or amongst greatness in general that you're around. Are there common patterns of frustration that you find in those individuals who are, again, deadly serious about that pursuit?
Yeah, following the path that they have followed to discover peace or freedom or confidence or freedom from anxiety or whatever. The frustration is always the same. It's always, I've done all the meditations and I've done the yoga and I've tried the psychotherapy and I've read the books and I've looked through the scriptures and I've followed the religion, and it didn't get me anywhere. That's a very, very common staple of frustration.
Well, it got them somewhere, right? Because they wouldn't be seeking out to you unless they have at least some level of success.
Well, when I say that they were looking at those things, they were looking at those things on a personal level. That's independent from their success in their profession. So it's always interesting that what someone does with their profession, they tend to do things in a different way, by way of prescription, when they look into a different element. For instance, you'll see someone who is a great CEO, and then they'll come over to the side of golf, for instance, and they'll take golf lessons, and the golf coach will tell them 16,000 different positions to memorize, and they'll become an invalid to memorize them when they know very well that exactly what made them great in their own profession was that they went against all teachers, all instructors. And here they are doing the exact opposite of what made them great in their own profession. So it's the same thing with looking at spirituality, where they come over here and say, okay, well, in my profession, I became great. In my business, I created empires. And now I come to spirituality. Now, what are the traditions that I should go through? And that's when the floor falls out. Mm-hmm. The traditions are the meditations and the yogas and the retreats and all this nonsense. They'll never get them anywhere. So they need to bring that same outside the box, buck the trend, the hell with society, everyone is wrong, the masses are always incorrect, the prevailing dogma is always wrong. They need to bring that over here too, because that applies to everything.
How do you define success?
I think that definition game, I don't know. I mean, English, language is a fabricated creation. So to turn a word into truth, I don't think that's very fruitful.
Well, and I was going to ask you that because I noticed in the times that we were together, you're very careful with your language. You're very careful with your words. What words do you use to describe that sense of fulfillment or euphoria that you're explaining?
Yeah, that's a good question. Words, the thing about words is that they always miss. Language is a very ineffective tool for communication. It's sort of like typing on an iPhone with a swollen finger. It's very imprecise. The word gets you into the area, but it can never relate to the experience.
How do you explain the experience?
You don't. You talk around it. You provide some descriptive elements of it, which I try to do with my discourses, but you can't explain the experience. You can explain things in such a way which inspires someone to go after the experience, but you can never describe to someone the taste of chocolate.
Can you at least give me a glimpse? What do your best relationship experience that's so elusive to the great majority of the world?
Ask that again.
What do the individuals you work with experience as a result of working with you that's so elusive to the majority of the world?
There's no way I can answer that question. That's a question for them. I only know what goes out from me. I don't know how things are received on the receiving end. They would have to tell me. But I will tell you, as for the experience, I think the ultimate experience is the very thing that everyone seeks, but they don't realize that even though they do it all day long, 24/7 their whole life, and that is all human beings seek engagement. They seek immersion. They seek to be lost in whatever they do. That is the central human desire.
And I concur with
that. That is to make you most alive.
I concur with that 100%. So, for you personally, how do you know what you know? How'd you get here?
That's a very good question. My knowledge is not my own. It is just that I know the way to the well. I think that knowing the truth isn't something that you learn in a book or through some methodology or technical means. I think you receive it through some form of grace. It is somehow bestowed upon you when you demonstrate to nature or the universe or to the ether that immediately surrounds you that how genuine and how sincere your desire for that truth really is. And when whatever that force is recognizes that desire and how genuine it is, it bestows it upon you knowing that it's releasing it into safe hands.
You've said in a lot of your discourses and, a lot of the interactions you've had on social media that all conflict is self-conflict, which in essence is, all of it is mind-made. Give me a little bit more on that.
Whenever you fight with another, it is your own uncomfortability that you're fighting with. Such that if one was complete and totally content with himself, he could never be affected to the point of conflict. Because no matter what the other person said, if it was true, then there would be no reason to get upset. If it wasn't true, then there would be no reason to get upset. The reason that we get upset is because we internalize the negative things that are directed towards us. And as we internalize them, that creates an internal self-conflict, and that manifests itself as external conflict.
What did it take for you to kind of get into that state of being? To live that way?
Uncompromising desire.
Do you ever get stressed?
Yeah, reactively I do, and I'll give you some examples. I'll give you probably the most readily available example to me is if wherever I go, I look for places to be alone. When I go to a restaurant and I see a group of 15 in one part of the restaurant, I will ask the person to seat us over there in the back room somewhere. To me, every restaurant should have a sit-down room or something where you go inside and there's no music and there's no people and they just close the door and you can sit quietly either by yourself or whoever you came with. The reactive sort of annoyance that I have is if you walk into a restaurant and a band starts playing, that just kills me because it destroys my silence. And I don't know why in this society there has to be music wherever you go. I don't know why there can't be silence somewhere. There's always got to be a radio or something playing overhead. And those are the kind of things which cut through everything and really in a reactive way get to me. And then after that, I can calm myself down, But those are the kind of things that are incompatible with my nature.
How quickly are you able to calm yourself down? Are you talking about instant?
Yeah. No. I can calm myself down instantly because I recognize that, I don't want to be in that annoyed state. That's why I said reactive. It's kind of like someone poking you in the arm with a knife. You'll react with a flinch, right? That's what I mean. If it gets too loud, I'll just leave, calm myself down is not difficult.
Do you structure your day where you have more silence than you do noise?
Wherever I go, I have more silence. and no noise. My house is a quiet house with TVs. Basically, we had TVs on the wall, which no longer have receivers hooked up to them. So I sent them back a couple of years ago. So we don't watch TV. I have no radio.
But what about when the boys want to play video games?
Yeah, they go play in the basement. That's fine. I don't have a problem.
So you stay away from the basement?
Yeah, I mean, if there's some video games you want to play, and I hear the video games, it doesn't bother me because it's, it's an there's an accepted level of noise that I'm okay with.
Tell me what the role of gratitude plays in your life.
It's prescription.
And that's why I ask.
Yeah. I don't believe in any of those things. I don't believe in any of those things as a doing. If gratitude comes to you, if compassion comes to you, fine. If you tell someone to be gratitude, have a gratitude journal, and I just reject all those things. And if someone gets something out of it, I'm not going to argue with them. I mean, I don't care what you got, whatever. If it gives you something, then by all means, it doesn't matter what I say. But if you ask me, what do I think about gratitude? I say it's a prescription.
How about money? What's your relationship with money, and how do you see money or financial freedom with some of the people that you work with? Is there a correlation between the suffering that causes people?
I think money is a bad rap. I think it's a romanticized idea to say that wealthy people are miserable, and by implication, that those people who don't have money are happy. That's not true.
I'm glad you said that.
Money. I'm sorry?
I'm glad that you said that, because I wholeheartedly believe that.
Yeah. There's wealthy people oftentimes have a guilt about having money. The society sort of looks down upon them, or as if they didn't deserve it, and as if they need to be more sharing and give away their money and give more to the. And I reject all those ideas. I think if someone wants to give, they can give, and if they don't, that's their business. And no one has any right to ask someone to give money to anybody else. I think that's all political, and it leads to a degraded society to demand that someone give something to another. I just totally reject all those things. I don't think charity is a responsibility. I don't believe that to be the case. I believe that charity is an option. And you are neither bad for not doing it, nor are you good for doing it. All things at the end of the day are done for yourself. If giving charity made you feel bad, nobody would do it. As for wealth and money itself, I think financial freedom is a big deal. And I'll also say that the only person who actually can search for truth is the one who is financially free. The one who has to feed his stomach cannot spend his life feeding his soul.
So if somebody's deadly serious, to use your words, about that pursuit of mastery, but they haven't achieved in their own terminology or definition that financial freedom, what do you tell them?
I think that's too hypothetical of a question. I think that generally people who are not financially free are working towards making more money. I think that's where their priority is, as opposed to I want to search for truth. Often, I can't say that categorically, but oftentimes it is the case that typically someone who is trying to make money and who isn't financially free, that'll be the great priority, while they have some desire for the truth that is also an interest of theirs. But it's very difficult to live in this society without money. And I think everyone realizes that. No matter how much you want the truth, at the end of the day, you must put food on the table.
Yeah, amen to that. All right, two more questions for you, and I'll let you go. On your own path to mastering your truth, where are you?
You know, that's a wonderful question. I don't know quite how to answer it. All I can say is that my sincerity and desire to live a sweet spot of a life is at a fever pitch. It is to the point of absolute desperation. I do not want a single moment of the day to go by that I do not feel immersed. It is truly a desperation. I'll say that at the end of the day, it is less about where someone is on a ladder and far more about how deep he is into the rung.
And when you're at that depth that you are currently are, how do you feel inside?
Um, I think the answer is probably not the one most will imagine that they'll hear. There's a lot of turmoil in seeking truth because you want everything now. And that dogged, unrelenting, uncompromising craving and quest leaves one always experimenting, always exploring, always dissecting. So it is a frenzy of a life in many ways. So I would say some combination of intensity and immersion.
Your latest discourse is about answers. And you have two wonderful young boys who are going to do great things in the world. If you had a group of their best friends or a group of 20 to 25 millennials that you were mentoring, what would you make sure they learned from you?
No, I wouldn't make sure they learned anything.
Come on.
I would just say that the thing that they would benefit the most from in their own life would be to allow my dogged intensity for the truth to somehow bleed into them, and the dogged intensity, the uncompromising immersion in whatever it is they want to do. I think that is the thing that would benefit them the most, by way of osmosis, much less than by way of instruction.
Well, watching you doesn't hurt either.
That's what the watching, I think, is far more impactful than it is telling.
Well, this certainly, the 35 minutes or so that we've just spent together doesn't do justice to the impact that you have on everybody that you're around. I hope that you and I can build on this conversation. And for those listening to you for the first time, what is the best way for them to stay up to date on what you do, the great writing that you do? And, I know there's another book that's coming soon, so tell them how to find you.
The website is kapilguptamd.com, kapilguptamd.com, and my Twitter handle is @kapilguptamd.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mo. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 33 Voices Dialogues by popular demand. And I have to say that over the last 2 weeks, this has probably been one of the most popular and most talked about episodes that we had ever done. And I think you're going to know why. I'm not going to get into any introductions because those who are going to be listening to this know that this is part two of my conversation with my friend Kapil Gupta. You're about to be intrigued again. So, my friend, great to be with you.
Thank you, Mo. Likewise.
So, I want to start with something that you said that for the past couple days has had me really thinking. And to you, it's going to be really simple. To the rest of us, it's not. In order to become present, you must first become absent. I think I have a sense of where you're going, but tutor me on that a little bit.
Presence is immersion into the moment. And in order to immerse yourself into the moment, you must disappear into the moment. As long as there is a you that knows that you are in the moment, you are not in the moment. Therefore, in order to become present, you must first become absent.
How do you disappear? Tell me what you mean by disappear. So, the great majority of the day, the great majority of us, we're disappeared, right? We don't even know what we're thinking or what we're doing. We're just kind of going through life, but we're not present.
Yeah, presence is really the way that it's described in the culture of society is a prescriptive sort of presence that you should do X and Y to become more present
Yeah, be in the moment.
and be in the moment. And even professional athletes are told that by sports psychologists all the time about being in the moment. Now, um, how many years did it take Buddha to get into the moment? And that too, after having surrendered his his crown and his kingly robes and disappear into the forest and live the life of an ascetic and drink his own urine and live on a grain of rice per day. And after years of that, he found presence, and yet society and modern day coaches and instructors tell people to be present as if they're asking them to tie their shoe. It's quite ridiculous. Uh, Nothing. If you're serious, you're serious, but don't talk nonsense and tell someone to be present. The moment is something that one could immerse themselves into a lifetime in order to accomplish. It isn't a prescription to go be present. One becomes present when he removes all the things that are the impediment to becoming present. The most obvious one and the largest obstacle being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But the attempt to be present while you are present is an ineffective prescription. If you truly want to seek the moment must mean more to you than everything else. There can be no experiencer. There can only be the experience.
So I'm going to be very cautious of my words because for those who listened to our last episode, we talked a lot about why the how isn't where everything lies. So I'm going to ask you what approach, if you've got people who are deadly serious about living present, the way you define it, what approach do we take to get closer to that?
The presence cannot be walked towards. It has to be backed into. When all of the interferences that are your involuntary thoughts and your worries and your concerns and your stresses and your anxieties and your fears, when those things don't mean as much to you as it does to be present, you begin to naturally gravitate towards the present moment. When you are using the present moment and the idea of becoming present as a prescription or as a treatment or as a way to feel less stressed. It doesn't happen because the impetus for it isn't sufficiently strong. These are very otherworldly things that are treated as if they're apples in a basket. These are life devotional things. These are true nectars of human existence. And to treat them as if they were to go blow your nose or to put on some makeup is really silly, and it is fundamentally to not understand how deep and how subtle is the journey to reach these places. So all things happen by way of sincerity. All things happen by way of genuineness. They don't happen by way of technique or prescription. And if you try to make them happen by technique or prescription, you will leave with the technique and the prescription. You will never leave with the thing.
So do you ever worry?
Do I ever worry? I worry when I allow myself to play the game of the mind.
And when you sense that, what do you do?
If I feel like playing the game, I play. If I don't feel like playing the game, I exit the game.
Why would you ever feel like it? I mean, is the mind taking you to places where you want to go? Right? You're telling me that the mind is the source of all conflict. Right?
Yep, that's a wonderful question. And that is because after you live life for a number of years in a certain way, you become habituated to the various games that you've been playing for many years. And those habituations have their sort of bells and whistles attached to them. And because you are used to, at least for a number of years earlier in your life, being attracted by the bells and whistles, the vestiges and the residue of those attractions still remain. As a result, the attraction to sometimes playing the game does remain. And for those reasons, I sometimes play. That isn't the important thing. The important thing is that I have a door through which I can exit.
How do you exit when you're ready?
I exit when my desire to exit is greater than my desire to play.
So, and I want to play on that for a minute. I want to talk about the truth. This is probably the one area that I have gotten more feedback than anything from our initial conversation. There's so many people that talk about the truth and transparency and all of the buzzwords of modern society. But when you talk to someone about the truth and when they listen to you speak about it, to the great majority of people, that translates to them that, hey, I have to be honest with myself. I have to stop lying to myself. But for you, that's very shallow. In your world, the real truth is much deeper. Take me there.
The truth is the causality. The truth is the nucleus of the cell. The truth is the central source and impetus from which all the problems at hand were born. That is the truth. By truth, I don't mean that someone's lying or being untruthful. The same way that by the word sincere, I don't mean that someone is being deceitful. Sincere means genuine, at least the way that I'm using it. The truth means what is the source of the problem? And upon examining the source, if you remove that central element upon which the problem rests, then the problem will come tumbling down. Every problem, every situation, every circumstance has a truth. We may not know what it is, and usually we don't know what it is. But just the idea that the situation that I'm facing right now has an absolute, definable, and knowable truth. And upon finding that, I will find my way. Just that idea allows one to have a very effective alternative to the ineffective path of pursuing prescriptions.
So, can we demonstrate that for a little bit? Can you demonstrate that with me, or could you share with us an example that you have recently discovered with somebody that you work with who did not know their truth, but they were dealing with a particular issue? And by walking them through that path of the truth, you discovered it. Could you kind of help us kind of peel the onion a little bit with it?
How about I give you a chapter from my upcoming book?
I would love that.
Imagine a human being that becomes insulted when he or she is called stupid. Okay?
Okay.
Someone calls them stupid, they get insulted, they get angry. The natural reaction to that is to say, well, I shouldn't get angry. But someone else, their friend or some therapist will tell them that just because someone called you stupid, the classic thing is this: it doesn't matter what someone says to you, it's how you react.
Right. Or don't take it personally, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's all just nonsense. Okay? It doesn't matter how you react, because even if you change how you react, but you feel a certain way, that means you just change the cosmetic of your reaction. It doesn't affect how you feel. You just kind of bit your tongue, so to speak. So that's just swirling muddy water all over you. That doesn't get to the truth of anything. That's just cosmetics. So let's examine the truth about that. The truth has nothing to do with how you should behave if someone calls you stupid. It has to do with, here's the question. If someone calls this person stupid and the person gets angry, the question is, why did they become angry? Naturally, if we get the cosmetics out of the way, because the first 5 answers that you get are always wrong, because they're top of the head and they're superficial. Mm-hmm. One of the first answers will be, well, the reason I got angry was because I was called stupid. Well, no, it's not true. Because if that person called you a cloud, would you get angry? No. Why not? The reason that you wouldn't get angry if someone called you a cloud was because you knew in very certain terms that you weren't a cloud. If they called you a bird, you know that you're not a bird, so you wouldn't get angry. Then why do you get angry when they call you stupid? The reason that the person would get angry if someone called them stupid, the reason that anger arose, not how to deal with the anger, not what's the best way to manage it, all this silly nonsense. What is the reason that the anger arose? The reason that the anger arose is because when the person was called stupid, something inside that person seriously entertained the possibility that they were in fact stupid.
Sure.
When that possibility was entertained, then another part of them, the egoic part of them, did not like the fact that a part of them entertained the idea that they were stupid. That produces internal conflict. That internal conflict outwardly manifested itself as anger. Now we have the systematology and the pathophysiology of why the anger arose. When someone sees that, then they are able to truly dissect the nucleus of the issue, which in this case would be, why is it that a part of me seriously entertains the possibility of me being stupid? That becomes the focus. And the focus does not become the silliness about how I should react next time.
And when you discover that, and maybe you discover the fact that, the part of you that triggered that goes back to, a childhood memory of a teacher who's telling you you're not smart enough, you're never going to amount to anything. What are you doing to try to put that to closure?
You don't have to do anything.
It's just the
Awareness,
recognition of it.
exactly. Awareness is the cure. All doings are done when someone does not have an awareness of the truth. Then you need to lower yourself and resort to doing.
So, Kapil, when you start to see the world from that lens, how does the view change?
It changes everything. It's a complete game changer because now all of your focus and all of your attention is on a completely different realm, on a completely different depth. Therefore, you begin to approach everything that way. And by doing so, you begin to have insights that nobody else has, not because you're smarter, but because the number of people in your domain or in any other domain who are truly, genuinely, sincerely willing to die for the truth can be counted on one hand.
It's pretty obvious, right? And I know you fit into that category, but that leads me, I want to skip around a little bit because that leads me to an area, the other area that was another one of our themes that we talked about last time that people are very intrigued by, which is this whole idea of being empty professionally. There are far too many people in the world who are empty professionally for whatever reason, right? We see the statistics, the Gallup studies, and all the misery that people have at work. When you hear people talk about how professionally bankrupt they are, you get surface answers like, I'm not challenged enough, I don't like my boss, burnout, etc., etc. What is the real reason that we put up with these types of less than satisfactory careers?
Because something within us is acceptable to us that we're there.
Fear?
If any, well, no, even if it was fear, the comfortableness of being there is something that means more to us than the uncomfortableness of leaving. So all decisions are already made. It is a very disingenuous thing when someone asks you, what should I do? They've already decided. They're just asking you in order to hope that you give them the answer that they've already decided upon.
Validation.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the idea, first of all, of a job, I reject. I don't think anybody should have a job. I don't think anybody should have a boss. Any human being who lives under the weight and the thumb of somebody else is a prisoner. So that human being already has a tyrannical warden called his mind. He doesn't need two of them. So when someone says, well, I don't have a job, and if I don't put food on the table, I'm not going to, I can't feed my family. It's better to live destitute in the street. I really mean it. I really mean it. There's wealth. You just do whatever you have to do. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to leave your job today, but, and I'm not asking people to leave their job, because if they want to, they will. But I think it's beneath human beings to have a job. If someone is completely immersed in what they do, it gives them glorious satisfaction. But I don't call that a job. Even if you do happen to work for somebody, if what you do makes you jump out of bed, it consumes all your faculties, it allows you to be completely immersed in it, that it doesn't matter if you're working for yourself or somebody else. That kind of experience is what everyone craves. It just so happens that very few people have that experience, even if they're self-employed. So sometimes you're a much worse boss than the boss that you had before. So it isn't being professionally bankrupt and being professionally empty has more to do with what experience that you not desire but insist upon living within than it does that it has to do with making your job more interesting. That's more cosmesis.
What's the percentage of people that you meet that are totally immersed in what they do? And is it skewed for you because you're dealing with entertainers and professional athletes and the people at the top of their game? Is that a trick question then?
Yeah, but even they are influenced by the culture as well. And so they the level of immersion that I talk about, absolutely they experience, and many people experience. It's just that they only experience it occasionally. And the reason that they only experience it occasionally is because that isn't at the forefront of their priority. And I'm not saying it should be. There's no should. But it just so happens that that is exactly what they're seeking without realizing they were seeking it.
Kapil, what do you tell somebody who's doing very well financially in a job, but really dislikes it?
Well, it isn't. No. It isn't for me to tell them anything. If someone's priority is money, their priority is money. There's no good and bad. There's no morality. There's no right and wrong. There's no correct or incorrect. If listen, Mo, if someone wants to be a billionaire just to be a billionaire, that isn't right and that isn't wrong. It's just what the person wants.
I see that. I see that. But at the price of complete unsatisfaction and well being, is it worth it?
It depends who's asking the question. If if society is asking the question, then it's none of their business. If the person who wants to become a billionaire and or who becomes a billionaire, if he says that it's not worth it, that I'm caught in this sort of game and I feel trapped and I desperately want a way out, well, that's totally different. If he's the one saying it, then that can be explored and freedom can be had. But it is society's natural default and natural reflexive bent towards recommending what they think is right. There's too much right and wrong and self-righteous morality which flows through the air of society.
That's what I appreciate so much about you is everything's personal, right? That they're really these universal beliefs and laws and cliches and metaphors that we hear, while the great overwhelming majority of us internalize them. You really take a step back and it's personal to the individual, which is something that's really refreshing.
Well,
it's the truth.
Well, not only that, I'll say this: it doesn't work the other way. You can impose all of your morality on anyone if you like. He's not going to do anything. People don't respond to right and wrong. People don't respond to good and bad. Do you know why the people who don't commit crimes don't commit crimes? It isn't necessarily because they think it's wrong. They don't want to go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a practicality behind it. It isn't that they stay up at night thinking about what the right thing and the wrong thing is. And if they do, that's a learned behavior. That's a societal religious imposition. Uh, so it doesn't work. The only way it works is if it's personal. And not only that, when it's personal, it has to be deeply personal. So it isn't like you have a choice. It isn't like you are able to impress your morality upon people, and when no one's looking, they're going to obey. No, they're not.
You know, this really kind of triggers something for me with, and it's been several months now since our relationship started, and one of the things I observe in you is you're constantly transcending. You're constantly, you're seeking your own truth, and I have to believe that most people who would give the time to listen to this and communicate with us as they have, they're very interested in evolving. I don't even want to use the word changing, evolving and trying to experience this true transcendence. How do you and the masters and the people you study, the people you work with, what do you do to continually transcend the way you do?
Well, situations continually arise, and then there are always the situations that are ongoing for which the precise truth has not yet been discovered. So it really is a chronic persistence after sort of the great truths of life, as opposed to finding ways to transcend.
So, like, give me an example of one or two great truths that you've discovered about your own life.
That the things that the mind tell me are correct are almost never correct. So I stopped listening to the mind.
But it never
I have
stops.
learned, well, so what? I mean, the dog never stops barking either. It'll be like, go listen to the dog. Uh, so I've learned to not 100%, but a pretty good percent. So I'm still working on the 100. I've learned to not allow the mind a say. If I decide to do something, I decide. The mind doesn't get a vote. If I decide not to do it, I'm not good for not doing it, or am I bad for not doing it? And even if I do something that the mind agreed with, it still doesn't get a vote because it's wrong. The mind, the mind always lies. So it's less about being wrong because it's not really wrong and right, but it always lies.
But you
It's
said
a
that
reactive liar.
that's probably a truth that we all share.
Oh sure, oh sure. There's nothing that's unique to me. We all suffer the same problems.
So for the majority of us, you say you're not 100%, but you're on your way to 100%. For the majority of us, with this whole mind thing, how do we even start to get to the 10 or 20%? How do we start to conceptualize the mind in within the same context as you just said, hey, the dog never barks. I've never heard that. Never stops barking. How do we start to let go of some of that stuff and start realizing ourselves that hey, a lot of that crap upstairs is crap.
Sincerity, understanding, and experimentation. Sincerity in really wanting to learn about the mind and not about psychology, because the mind has psychology for breakfast. Psychology doesn't touch the mind, it's just behavior modifications and swirling of the muddy water. So, sincerity in wanting to learn about the true nature of mind, its habits, its patterns, like watching an animal in the wild. And the second thing, I always forget what I say. So, what was the second thing I said? Sincerity, what? I don't. I said three things. I know that much.
Well, you said sincerity for sure, right? And
And then I
experimentation.
said, yeah, experimentation was one of them. Uh, After one is, if one is sincere, then they will experiment with their own mind to discover the thoughts that it creates. How often is it right? Not what it should say, not what it shouldn't say, not that you're going to get mad at it for saying it wrong, not that you're going to be happy with it for saying it right. Just as an impartial observer, the things that it says to do, or that it has said to do in past situations, whether it be in relationships or one's work or in a decision making capacity, whatever it is, how often is it right? How often has it genuinely helped the individual? And how often has it genuinely hurt the individual? And I'm not leading anyone to be totally upfront about it and examine it as a neutral observer. Through that sincere exploration, one then develops the capacity for, in order to cultivate abilities that he did not previously have. They were always latent within him, but before he was functioning by way of societal conditioning, things relating to psychology and do this, don't do that, and the mind is a great thing that is your friend and it can move mountains, and all of which are only half truths. The mind absolutely can move mountains, but it can only move mountains once you are no longer under its control.
Is Do you devote your learning, because you're always writing, you're always studying? What are you learning? Is your learning path geared towards the discovery of some of these things that you've shared with us?
I I want to be the master of my mind. It should never even get a bleep. It should never even get a whisper. My mind needs to become my genie in a bottle. I want to be I want to be completely 100% a master of life, to understand how everything works, to untangle the ball of yarn, to know it intimately. Why? Is it a curiosity? Absolutely not. It's life and death for me, because this is what drives me. When I have everything untangled, I am free. Everything comes under my control. When I know something that deeply, when I know, when I see the strings behind the stage, when I solve this Rubik's Cube, nothing can affect me anymore. I am no longer a prisoner to anything. That, to me, is a life well spent.
So when you're around people, and I want to get to some of the questions and some of the most intriguing ones that people have communicated with me specifically from our last conversation. And one of the ones that I found interesting was this whole idea of about doubt and positive self-talk. First, what do you think ignites doubt in people?
Fear
Of what's to come?
of not getting what they want to get.
But how do I know that until I try?
Well, you will try, but you'll be fearful as you try. You
That's
see,
that's not a good recipe.
desire, well, you act like you function out of choice. You function out of compulsion. Fear and desire go hand in hand. Whenever the mind desires something, it fears not getting it 10 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
That causes self doubt.
How do you handle that?
It isn't about handling anything. It's about learning. I wrote about this in a discourse a few times years ago. My younger son was 7 or 8, and we were on the golf course, training. And he asked me a question. And I'll never forget where I was standing when he asked me. And he said, "Where does fear come from, Daddy?" And my mind said to me at that moment, it said, "Well, here you go. You're on the spot. What are you going to do now, mind master?" Right? You don't have, you have to give him a response right now. He's looking right into your eye. And I didn't allow myself to think, because I knew that if I thought, I would spin my wheels. So I allowed instinct to answer the question. And this is what instinct said. Instinct said that wherever there is a consequence, there is fear.
So
it is the understanding of that allows one to proceed with wisdom. It is not the dealing with anything. It isn't the management of anything. I think dealing with and management should be thrown into the trash can, and anyone who ever has a stress management conference should be fired and put in jail. I think all management and all dealing with is all cosmetic, 20-minute too late prescription nonsense. All treatments are nonsense. Either there is a cure that you have, or shut your mouth. Because a genuine human being deserves nothing less.
So I appreciate the instinctive decision that you gave your son back then. So does that mean is the answer to learn how to detach from outcomes, to learn how to detach from these?
That's too prescription. That's back to prescriptions again. It isn't. The reason that you ask me, what do you do, is because you haven't explored it. Okay, listen. Mo, if you were sitting in a chair and there's a snake under your chair, the only knowledge that you need, the only information that you need, is for me to tell you that there's a snake under your chair.
Damn right.
After having obtained that information, one person might sit perfectly still. One person might jump off the chair and run down the hall. One person who has experience with snakes might reach down and grab the head of the snake. One person might pull out a knife from his pocket and cut the snake in half. What the person does is irrelevant. It is simply that he must be armed with the knowledge and the insight that there is a snake under the chair. No one needs two pieces of information: the information of the snake and what do I do. They only need the first piece of information.
What then is confidence? How do you define confidence?
It isn't about definition.
Is it a feeling?
Confidence comes from systems. If you are performing a task, in order to have confidence in that task, you have to have a system that performs the task for you, and you execute that system every time. Even if that system doesn't always produce the desire that the outcome that you want 100% of the time, then you go back and you refine the system. But confidence is more about surrendering yourself to a system than it is about you trying to produce a certain outcome. Because if each time you don't rely upon a system and you yourself try to produce a certain outcome, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Most times it doesn't. As a result, you will lose confidence in yourself because it is yourself that is doing the action. But if you create a system, then the system does the action, and you have confidence in it. A person has confidence when he rides in a boat that the river will take him down itself. He will not have to paddle necessarily. A flowing river will take him downstream. He has confidence in the river. If the river was completely still and he jumped into the river and it was up to him to make every paddle and splash, then sometimes he may get down the river, other times he may get tired. It would be very ineffective and spotty. Therefore, he would lose confidence in the fact that he's able to consistently make himself go down the river. So I believe that in whatever task it is, whether it's professional sports or whether it's business, whatever it is, to create a system that can be relied upon. And each time you execute that system, you test its efficacy. And after having received the data as to how efficient that system is, you go back and refine until the system produces the outcome that you desire most, if not all of the time. And then that is the thing that you have confidence in. To rely totally upon ourselves is a very ineffective way to go about things.
So now you're opening up, the window's opening a little bit for me. You're not a golfer, but you coach PGA players. You're not a swimmer, but Olympic swimmers seek you out. You certainly have never been in entertainment. Still, the A-list people have you on direct dial. So if it's not skills that you're teaching, is it this system that you're helping them design?
Well, there's a great truth that is operative that everyone must understand. And it applies to everything. The thing is never about the thing.
It's about the mind.
Basically, it's about the mind. Yes. It's never about the action. It's about the source of the action. It's never about the carrying out of the action. It's about the intention of the action. It's always about the deep-seated impetus behind the thing. That's where all the magic is. It's never in the execution of the thing. The execution is a natural byproduct of the impetus.
So is that what?
No singer loses their voice. No PGA Tour player loses their swing. And yet, and that is the truth. But they tend to lose their swing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they call in their instructors from all over the country to come see them, to ask them why their swing plane is too inside or outside or over the top or across the line, and all this just garbage. That is because they believe that they are the executors of the action. And if you yourself are the executor of the action, you will be inefficient far more than you will be efficient. As a result, you will lose confidence. You will then believe that you will need to refine your technique in order to perform the action better, thereby getting more confidence so that you can have better execution. That doesn't work. So everything, another theme, everything in society, and I'm talking at the highest levels of society, the PGA Tour, the NBA, world-class performing artists, high-level acting, the Hollywood stage, everything is backwards.
Where do we start as individuals who are committed to this?
Depends where you want to go.
I want to go to the truth. I want to go be the master of my mind, like the quests that you are in the process of conquering. And I speak for a lot of people who've commented on this.
Then if that is genuinely and sincerely your quest, then you will begin to walk down that path. And if you do not walk down that path, there should be no remorse for not having walked down it. It is just that you will then know that as of yet, at least, is not your sincere desire. Because if it were, then you would have already walked.
Yeah, well, a lot of us have some.
We never do what we don't want to do. That is another myth. We never do what we don't want to do. We always get what we want. We are not victims, we are creators. And that is not a motivational phrase. It is said in order to provide insight that all of our actions are motivated by our own intrinsic inspirations and motivations, regardless of what we tell ourselves.
Do you believe in positive self-talk?
No, I think it's all garbage.
So that's part of that mind speaking to you that you ignore. That's the dog barking.
Well, actually, positive self-talk is you tell yourself that you're great, and you can tell yourself that you're great, but what's your mind going to say back? And when your mind goes back and tells you that that's right, and whose voice do you think wins? This is all. I got to tell you, the fact that I have to say these things, and you know what, I say these kind of things that come up in all kind of podcasts and interviews and talks I've had with people. I am actually flabbergasted that this is actually a discussion. I am shocked that we are at this stage of evolution in society where self-talk is actually considered to be an effective thing.
Hey, there are books on that. There are people who charge lots of money to have you to go to a seminar for 3 days so you can walk out with your rituals to have your self-talk when you wake up and when you go to sleep.
Yeah, right after the mindfulness seminar and the stress management talk.
Stress management, of course, man. You paid a lot of money for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure that you went once and you were cured.
Well, exactly. Absolutely. Listen, to me, these are the most fascinating conversations I have ever had. And I am completely indebted to you for having them. And I hope we can keep building on them. I have to ask you one last question, and we'll put a pause for this one and hopefully build on it. If you were running a company that is growing really fast, like one of these technology companies, and you are the leader or CEO, whatever, of this company, what would your leadership style be? What would your people expect from you?
What's my vision for the company?
You're you're part of it.
Am I looking to produce the company? Am I looking to to build the company and then look for an exit? Or is this something that I want to uh, nurture and create into a Google or an Apple?
The latter.
What What do you want to hear?
I want to hear how you'd lead a company like that.
All things at the end of the day come down to leading yourself with perfection. When you operate from a place of sincere motivation and your eyes are forever on yourself, looking at all the holes in yourself, it has an effect on people. And whether it does or not, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter to me because I wouldn't change it even if it didn't. But just from experience, it tends to have a ripple effect on people that compels them to walk along those lines without you ever having to ask them to do so. It becomes infectious and contagious. Not your behavior, not your motivational speeches, but who you are creates what the company becomes.
And would one of your priorities, in addition to yourself, wanting to transfer that to the people that you have? Because you can't build that type, you can't build Apple by yourself. And you're going to have people all over the world, but you're the prophet. You're the leader.
Well, all people that I would hire would be enormously skilled in their particular domain. So the things that I'm discussing aren't skill development. They already have that. The things that I'm discussing are inspiration and purity of intent. It wouldn't be about me instilling anything into them. It would be about me examining my motivations for doing all the things that I do in each interaction with a person, in just the way that I walk into the office, whatever I do, that would that would set the tone. Now, if there were people who did not exemplify that pursuit towards perfection in themselves as it relates to their role in the company, then they wouldn't be part of the company anymore. So I would recruit and I would surround myself with the people whose sensibilities were naturally in line with a pursuit toward making something great. I'm not much of a believer in pep talks.
That's obvious.
I believe you are the walking example. The becoming is the message. Talk is cheap.
Well, hey, if nothing else, the last 45 minutes, and for those who have been with us, they've certainly maybe taken one kind of slight step towards that becoming. And I want to put a pause here because I know we're going to build on this, but let people know, tell me about your upcoming book. Where do people find you? How do they keep up to date with you?
Twitter's where I spend some of my time. It is at KapilGuptamD. Our website is kapilguptamd.com. The upcoming book is sort of under wraps right now, although I did reveal a chapter today for the first time.
The discourses are many books in and of themselves.
Yeah, the discourses, I suppose you could say that everything's from the heart.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mo.